So I'm here to host an interview, a Q&A with Gabe Polsky, who is a director, a producer, a writer, much admired and very successful in terms of accumulating awards for quite a host of marvelous film projects and television projects. And as I look down this thing, Red Army, His Way, Genius, which by the way I also loved, out of all the projects that you've done, and they all seem to have a thread in common, which, if maybe all of them are, labors of love.
Which are labors of love?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So, I
sometimes
mean,
you get a job and you do it and you find something to love about it, but sometimes it's just something that you're pushing along because you
yeah,
just
yeah. I mean, that's a very great question. I think all the films that I've like been a director on and sort of, I think for some reason, directing is like a much more intimate role in filmmaking. Obviously you're just in developing and all the documentaries that I've made, the last three, the final one hasn't been released yet, but I kind of started from nothing and kind of created and built them, and there's just very labor intensive. So with the documentaries, with Red Army, In Search of Greatness, which we'll talk about today, and my next one, just very involving, and to do something like that, I've found that you just have to be, if you're going to knock it out of the park, you just have to be so passionate about it, because there's just, it's an endless kind of series of decisions and work and obstacles that you just have to, in order to sort of push through. They all have to be labors of love, and they happen to kind of be very personal to me, both Red Army and In Search of Greatness, because of my background. I have a sports background, and I played competitive ice hockey and other sports too, but throughout my life, and eventually in college at Yale University. And so I was sort of looking very seriously about sport and about how far I could take it, and how, if that's sort of what I wanted to do with my, at least, youth life, you know. And so, yeah, and then so all that, when I became a filmmaker, I really, I started making films not necessarily about sport, several of them, but ultimately came to the subject matter and really wanted to look very deeply at sport and sort of culture and politics and a lot of things. Yeah.
Well, before we do that, so in my intro, I indicated that you wear three hats at least: director, producer, writer. You don't wear all three for every film or every project, but you do and can rightfully claim success in all three under all those hats. As a person, as a creative person yourself, and one can be a creative producer, creative director, creative writer. Which of those and which of those hats do you like wearing the most?
I mean, I think I like directing the most, um, because it allows you to really fully express your creative ideas, and not sort of have to have somebody else, like, you have an idea and you really want to express it, and then you have to hire a director to express it. You lose something there. So if you're really passionate about something, and feel that you have the ability to do something really creative with it, I think by nature you've got to kind of have that control. And so I like that. I started off as a producer with my brother, and we made several films, and got involved with the Albert Einstein estate. We got the rights to Albert Einstein and his life rights, and the famous Walter Isaacson biography, really attracted it to sort of
And let's
how.
tell everybody which that was, the National Geographic
Yeah, it
Einstein.
became the series Genius on Nat Geo, and
It was
Einstein was like
fantastic.
it was really the sort of kingpin of the whole series. They marketed the whole series on his name. So that's how we got started. And initially I thought, oh, producing would be so fun, and getting the rights to different intellectual property and creating original ideas, and then the business aspects of it, and then really putting the whole film together, and helping with distribution. That would be really fun and cool, and it was, but I think after a certain point and working with different directors, and you sort of have to hand the film off to the director, and that was, that can be, it's fun and it's a great learning process, but it wasn't as maybe creatively fulfilling as I thought it would be fun to do. And so it kind of really pursued that. Just thought that
What about the
I could.
writing?
What's that? Yeah, and writing as well. Yeah.
So do you like writing, or do you
But
find
do I
it?
like writing? I do, but I don't really like consider myself like a professional writer who wakes up every day and sits at a table and and
Yeah,
and writes. I mean, that's what writers do. That they're professional. They get hired to do that. I'm really writing out of necessity and kind of just because I want a project to happen. And I often find that when I've hired writers in the past, it doesn't quite. You're never quite fully satisfied. And so, I think that the next step is to try it yourself. Well, if they can't do it, then somebody's got to do it, and you've got to do it. And so it's also very expensive to like hire writers all the time, and like you got to wait forever and you never quite get what you need. And so, I just
that's
tried.
the producer part of you talking, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So
budget
like,
and
so you do it as a director out of necessity, and it gives you a whole nother level of control over the voice of the film. And with documentaries, a lot of people don't know that like the whole process is writing, really. I mean, because you're constantly, yeah, you're shooting the story, you're shooting interviews, but you're constantly trying to figure out how the story is going to go from A, B to C, D, and all the structure. You're just always thinking about structure. You're editing dialogue and words, and it's really, if you're a good writer and editor is kind of I don't know, blends into each other, especially with documentaries, but even feature films as well.
for sure. Let's get back to In Search of Greatness, because that's the film that everybody um, will have seen if they're seeing us chatting.
Yeah.
And now everybody's logging on to meet you, and you're talking to them, not just to me, because most people who go to see a film, in this instance, in their living rooms or what have you, are going to have questions afterwards, especially if they love the film. If they didn't love the film, sometimes you'll have an audience who stays for a Q&A because they didn't get it, and now they want to be
Yeah.
able to ask their question. But for this film, I'm pretty sure that not only are they going to get it, they're going to be completely persuaded, because you're talking about figuring out, well, why my synopsis? You tell us the synopsis of In Search of Greatness, and also answer the question for me, because I was looking at the other films, Red Army, which talks about the rise and fall of the famed USSR team. I don't know if rise and fall is the way to describe it, but and Genius, obviously, and the next one that's coming up, the Red Penguins. Um, which films, which is this a constant? Do you find a thread here that you've been in search of greatness for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, even with Genius, yeah, I mean, I'm fascinated uh, um, by creativity and sort of how it applies to different fields, and how I think a central idea of In Search of Greatness is that is how this idea of this sort of unorthodox, and how it equates to creativity. Like Einstein, for instance. He could be described as a very unorthodox scientist. He's
Of
not
course,
necessarily the most mathematical guy. I mean, but the way that he
it's
approached,
abstract thinking.
yeah, the way that he was able to visualize and understand science in a different way, and look at it in a different way, will like revolutionize science. And it's these people that, but yet at the same time, he worked at a patent office and was never accepted in the scientific community, and nobody really liked him, and he was somewhat rebellious. it's these kinds of people that revolutionize the world, but yet they have so much resistance to them, and
Well, they're
that
used to
way.
being rejected.
Yeah, and that the way that we value that we place on kind of standardized evaluation of talent,
And
is sort of,
conformity.
yeah, conformity, which weeds out by nature the people who don't conform, and but yet these people somehow are able to succeed despite the outside pressures to conform, and the filtering out of these creative people. So anyways, I found I see this paradox everywhere, including sport, and I think that a lot we have things that are backwards all the time, um, and so I think the reason why I made In Search of Greatness is for people to have a clear understanding of what greatness is, where it comes from, and how to kind of nurture it, and sort of, and also I think In Search of Greatness is really about mental health more than anything, because if we develop, it's not just, being great is about being happy and fulfilled and satisfied in your life. It's not
I
like
think
all of a
Beethoven
sudden.
would
Oh,
disagree.
what's that?
I think Beethoven would disagree.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe some people will
I don't
disagree.
know about being happy, but it's maybe
Yeah,
that drive to find
your
happiness through.
passion. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you're
that's
not being
a
forced to do anything. This is your freedom. Your work is your freedom. You're immersed in it. It becomes an obsession, and
it's passion. You
yeah.
got
So
that.
finding that thing that can drive you like that, is really
So,
important. And so, but it creates mental health. We're doing what we
oh,
want to
right. If you're
do.
allowed to do it,
Yeah.
sure.
Yes.
If you're not
Exactly.
allowed to do it,
Yeah.
that will definitely make you mentally ill.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Somehow. That's why we talk about the gulag and we talk about these prisons and
Yeah.
what could be less nurturing to creativity. Um, so we talked before we went on tape. We talked about your experience at Yale, and you talked about your coach and your own what your needs were as an athlete were not being met. The thing that attracted you to being a hockey player, your
Yeah.
admiration for other hockey players who were great, like Wayne Gretzky, who shows up in Search of Greatness. And thank you for that, because I kind of didn't know very much about Wayne Gretzky, although I knew he was a superstar. But I feel like I really feel like I can relate to his way of thinking and his creativity and his problem solving skills and his quickness. What about you? What happened with you and your coach?
Yeah. Well, I sort of, got recruited by Yale, and this guy Tim Taylor, but and it's very hard to turn down. I mean, I was recruited by other schools and good ones, but it's really hard to turn down Yale, and I thought that that I would go in there and basically it would be self-evident. You'd prove yourself, and you know get it some chances, and just prove yourself, be productive athlete. And so I was an offensive player. I love to You'll see, I mean, my views of the film are the same way I played. I like to make plays. I like to do things that not everybody was doing, but in a productive way, and offensive, and make plays. And my coach was very systematic, and defensive minded, and kind of not open to new ideas. Really just wanted you to do what he sort of wanted you to do. And I was sort of, you became to feel like you're sort of this interchangeable, cog in a machine that doesn't really, could be me, it could be someone else, but like that's not really very productive. I felt also as an athlete I could be so much more productive, and the players on the team could have also reached much higher potential, and it just, the practices, the games, the whole spirit, there was, it didn't feel like it was very fun, or you know interesting or creative, and he was sort of dreary. And so I kind of lost, because of the fact that
Motivation.
I wasn't really willing to compromise and just sort of like, you know, I don't know, be unproductive or sort of not do what I know I can do, and it caused a lot of conflict with the coach, and therefore I wasn't, given a lot of playing time. When I played, I felt like I was productive. I would make plays and get points and stuff like that. But it really just sort of got worse and worse throughout my career, the relationship, and eventually kind of had to had to stop playing on my senior year. But now the importance of this is that it really like caused me to be heartbroken and kind of, because I wanted to play after college and I felt like I had the talent to do that. And when when you grow up and this is what you do and you want to master something and you feel like you're coming very close to it, and you sort of see the players around you, and you feel like you could, and then it just sort of like, it was very heartbroken breaking. So it really inspired, my point is, that really inspired the ideas of this film, and I felt like, you know it's not just me. I'm representing so many people and players and all these kids that have very similar experiences, that really could have had a much better experience in sport or in their job or whatever it is, and just because people don't, the coach was probably ignorant. He didn't know really, what
Who,
greatness was. He didn't understand what creativity was. He never was.
which coaches do? Which are the ones over
No,
the
there's
years?
very few. Okay, so like in this film there's Bill Walsh, there's Glenn Sather, there's in Soviet Union it was this guy Anatoly Tarasov in my movie Red Army. It's like guys that understand that sport is, that there's artistry in sport, that you have to allow people to express themselves. You have to make things fun. You have to be open-minded. You have to constantly be changing.
Now,
Uh,
you could be my professor in my art class. Every single phrase you've just used is a phrase that's used by an art teacher or a music teacher.
yeah,
Creative,
yeah, that's exactly.
open-minded, expressive, same words.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they apply to everything. It's just basically allowing people to experiment and really, allow them to fail, which is an important thing, as you'll see in the
Could you
film.
use that phrase again?
Allowing people to fail.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
So you don't just get a prize for showing up.
yeah. And it's not, yeah. And especially for youth, I mean, it's not really, who cares if somebody wins or loses when they're, 10 years old or even
How about
13 or 12.
5?
It's about developing the mind and body, and about, bigger picture stuff. So yeah, I mean, just one modern example is like a Steve Kerr, who's the coach of the Golden State Warriors, or Phil Jackson. But Steve Kerr, you look at how they were playing, and it was just a beautiful game, and everybody they were all having fun, and just doing the most amazing plays. And he had a very open-minded, kind of relaxed way about it. You know what I'm saying? Like in the film, I think great coaches are ones that eventually they don't have to do all that much, because you know
What about parents? Because there were some great
yeah,
parents in the
yeah.
film as
So
well.
parents, I mean, I think the key, as you'll see in the film, is that you can't force greatness. You can't, no matter how much you want your kids to practice or go to these special camps or whatever, it'll just never going to do anything, because it's greatness. All you can do is, if a kid, all you can really do is like, is give maybe kids some opportunities to play the sport, and if they happen to fall in love with it, and show them how the game can be interesting or fun or whatever, and then they themselves fall in love with it, and really it, and then also, if they feel like, I really would love to be a better stick handler, I'd love to be a better shooter, maybe you can give them advice every now and again, or introduce them to somebody, the right player, but never pressure them or make it, because it just doesn't do anything. It makes it worse.
So you think kids are overprogrammed?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. for sure. I mean, listen, I'm not, I haven't been like on the sports scene in like 20 years, but from what I hear from parents who see the film, whatever, it's just like right on and even worse. And this is what they do, you know, they become obsessed more than the kids are about them being great. And it's just, it's incredibly harmful. It's almost in a way, I think, a mental illness.
So free play and the experience of hours spent alone just doing what you do and perfecting what you do
Yeah.
by yourself.
Exactly.
It's a harmful thing. Can't be social all the time.
Yeah. And by yourself. Exactly. But sometimes you need, you know, you do it with your friends or whatever you're developing, you know, because you have to have opponents
In
or, you
some
know,
sport,
yeah,
sure.
yeah, exactly. But, or even creative collaborators, like for instance, in any sport, basketball, soccer, hockey, any team sport, it's about collective creativity just as much as it is individual. You have to understand the strengths and weaknesses of your teammates and how to
Support each
how to
other.
work together to sort of uh, to fool the opponent, or you know that's part of the thing.
So that's the magic.
Yeah.
So when you use a phrase, and I'm trying to remember it now, was it rage to master, or was that
Yeah,
the
that wasn't my phrase. It was just like a
somebody's phrase?
psychologist. Yeah.
And then it was followed by rage to master combined with ability or ability to learn or something like
Yeah,
that
an ability to learn quickly, I think.
quickly. And if you put those two things together, do you think that's the magic formula? But that's not something you can teach. You
I
cannot
mean,
teach somebody.
that's one sort of saying. I think it's kind of a succinct uh you know, saying, but it seems to make sense, you know, like yeah, I mean, if you're like a rage to master, that's hardcore, but yeah, you do have a rage to master.
That
And if you
Tony
can,
Hawk little piece, when Tony Hawk, the competition was over and he
yeah,
continued to go down the ramp.
yeah,
Just
that
say,
seems to really be true, you know, and then ability to learn quickly. Obviously, the faster you're learning, the more kind of quickly you master something, right?
well, yeah,
Yeah,
and practice. It's how do you get to Carnegie Hall, right?
yeah.
It's the same old thing. Um, we once attended, we're affiliates of the Kennedy Center down in DC. And there was once a seminar where a doctor who's a professor of urology and neuro, something or other to do with sports, was the speaker. And he's addressing arts groups and educational groups and like 600 people. And he was talking about all kinds of things, but it's focusing on the brain, how the brain works. And he posited the following. He said, at that time it was Michael Jordan. He was the guy, and everybody was just. And he is in your film, and you did have him featured there. But he was using Michael Jordan as an example of somebody who was recognized to be whatever great in his sport or above great, beyond great. Um, and the question he posed was, what if Michael Jordan had been born into other circumstances and had gotten a career along the lines of physics? Would he have demonstrated the same genius in that direction had he applied the same kind of passion and the same kind of determination? Was that possible? And that's what he explores. Whether or not nobody can answer that, but I mean, he ended up in baseball also, right? And
Yeah.
that didn't out the same way. But
Yeah, but he
uh,
also didn't like stick with baseball, but also there's some evidence that he wasn't nearly as good as baseball when he was a kid, you know, like it just didn't quite happen for
click.
him, you know. So I think that I don't think he could be like the greatest physicist ever, you know. I don't know. I just intuitively I don't think
So you
so.
think it's like a pairing, that it's also luck. If
Yeah,
you
absolutely. Yeah.
So Gretzky found himself through hockey, but would not necessarily have been that same great athlete had
Yeah,
he found himself.
no way. No way.
No
I
way.
don't think so, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
maybe there is a sport, but I don't know. I just think that, or maybe it's possible. It's possible another sport, but I don't, not that kind
Well,
of greatness, not the greatest of all time. I just, I don't know.
What about you?
What's that?
You said it was hockey for you, correct?
Yeah, and I played all the other sports, and I think I was probably best at hockey, and I loved it the most. Maybe I don't know which one came first, but you know what I'm saying?
I do. I do.
There's something about hockey that I loved. I loved how fast that it was fast, faster than other sports that you were using. It was so unusual to be on skates with a stick, and I don't know. It seemed like for me it was the most fun.
Um, you got all these people to get on camera with you. What did that take in terms of persuasion?
Yeah, I mean, it just took a lot of time and a lot of
Let's go
persistence.
down the list. Who have you got? You've got Gretzky,
I've got
Pele,
Gretz,
Jeff.
Pele, Jerry Rice, and then I have Ken Robinson and David Epstein. So that's not a lot of people in a movie. However, I did go after Michael Jordan, and I went after Serena Williams. I went after Willie Mays. I went after a few other people. And as in any film, you're never able to get everybody you want, but after I got those three, I started making the film with basically editing and putting everything together and whatever, and seeing what I could do. And I realized, you say, okay, do I need anyone else? Like, or can I make a great film? The film I want to make with what I've got. And I felt that I had it, once I had those, and basically, just tried to make the best film I can make. And then those people that I didn't get, like Michael Jordan and Tom Brady and Muhammad Ali, I was still able to tell exactly what I felt needed to be told about those athletes through archival, but also kind of really taking a look at what I thought was the essence of their story and how it sort of why they're great. And do it in my own unique way, like Michael Jordan. You'll see there's going to be a Michael Jordan like kind of documentary series coming out very soon. I'm very excited to watch it. But I feel that I was able to capture
I think you
in
nailed it.
in a fairly uncomplicated way, sort of who Michael Jordan is, and what is his greatness, that kind of maniacal competitiveness, like just the anger,
Well, I was going to say that there
says
was a
that,
sort of mean spirit to that final speech at the Hall of
yeah,
Fame. There
yeah.
was nothing friendly as
And so can you really get to the essence of somebody, like in a short period of time, like Serena Williams, like the idea that her sister was getting most of the attention, and what that did to her psychologically. And then she really, like, you could see that the way she plays with power and strength, that's sort of this inner lion.
unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can
And
see it
so
as soon as she comes out.
yeah.
So, so last words. The film is in search of greatness. You're in search of greatness, but now you're in search of greatness as a filmmaker. Yes?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
And I think your film is great. And I think that you will have done a lot of people, you will have opened a window on new ways to look at nurturing talent and being kind to children and allowing free play, unstructured. Wow. And that's just my opinion, but I think that you have done a remarkably good job.
Thank you. I'm just hoping that, yeah, the mission with this film is really to just get as many people as possible to see it, so that that's the only way that you're going to create better experiences for parents, coaches, kids, and in any field. And really, if you have kind of a deeper understanding of these ideas, you'll think twice about how to how to raise kids, how to evaluate people, and how to you know what makes sense. And I think that that'll go a long way into kind of making, I don't know, experiences better.
Well done. Well said and well done.
Anyway,
Thank you so much.
thanks
And
a
I
lot.
hope that when you're in New York, you'll come out and maybe we'll all be able to emerge into the sunlight again, and we'll have an audience for you so that you can have this conversation for your next film with us.
That's great. It'd be an honor.
Thank you. Thank you. It's
Take
been a pleasure
care.
talking to you.
See you
And
guys.
now I'm going to say congratulations and continued success. And we're looking forward to getting your next film as
Thank
well.
you. Well, good luck to Gold Coast, and my best to you guys. I'll see you guys soon.
We appreciate it and see you soon. See you at the movies.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Bye.